I feel like I'm not the same person when I speak English, and I don't think people realize how much that can affect you. Like, I'm still myself, but not fully. Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia. If you don't know me already, I moved to Sydney 3 years ago. I recently decided to start my life over somewhere else. So, this is a space where I share the journey. I speak about how it is to live abroad, the struggle that comes with it, navigating uncertainty, finding my path, and everything in between. One thing that really impacted my perception of myself and my identity more than I had anticipated, it was the language switch. I moved to Australia with a solid level of English already, and because I didn't make the mistake of surrounding myself only with my own people, with Italians, I could fully dive into the Australian experience. Although English is not my first language, it is the language that I live my life in now. That's how I speak, how I communicate at work, how I study at uni, how I express emotion. It's even how I think now, which I know is wild, but everything besides counting, I do it in English. If you count in English and it's not your first language, I have to know how your brain works. When I first moved here, I didn't understand why people would move to the other side of the world and only hang out with their own people and never stick the nose out the door, sort of. But only in the last year, I've been blessed enough to have two of my friends from home come join me for a year here. And I started to hang out more with Italians, but not just Italians. These were people that knew the old version of me and they were just getting to see the changes that happened to my personality. And it was so good for both me and my soul. Honestly, I forgot how funny and joyful and playful we are. But it also helped me realize things about myself that otherwise I would have never noticed personality wise. Today, amongst all, I want to dissect better the language experience and how I felt affected. Clearly, as we all know, moving to another country and navigating your life in another language, especially if you're learning from scratch, is already hard enough. So if you're doing that, big accomplishment, because I know that is extremely hard. English was not the only language that I speak. I learned French, Spanish, and Russian, and I know it's very complicated. But living in English entails more than just learning the language. It means translating your whole personality, sense of humor, identity, express emotion, navigate confrontation, all in another language. And fully manage to come across in a way that you think really reflects who you are. So today I wanted to speak on ways that I feel affected while I successfully manage, I guess you can say that, to build a life in English. First off, I feel less smart, less funny, less expressive, less everything. I know you probably never had the chance to tell, but I'm a quite loud, expressive, witty, playful individual in my first language. I could yelp for hours on end about everything and anything. I've had 9 hours conversation with my friends, just yapping away about life. It's just my cup of tea. I think there's nothing better than bonding over shared life experiences. And surprisingly, in English, I met my quiet side because basically my mouth can't keep up with my brain. So my loud expressive personality is still there, but the words can't keep up with it and they are not coming out as fast or as good as I'd like them to. And I know that a lot of people might listen to me and be like, Alicia, what are you on about? Like, your English is just fine. Like, there's really people struggling here. And first off, thank you. But second, if you've been through this, the frustration of knowing exactly what to say, but not knowing how to word out the joke, the story, the experience, the example, might have a whole array of experiences to relate to that specific context. But I feel so limited in my vocabulary to the point that I'm digging in my brain to trying to find that specific word that I heard once 8 months ago and never used ever since. And it is just not coming through. If you've been through, you know exactly how it feels. And I don't want to push this it's either perfect or nothing mentality because it's so toxic and detrimental and draining. But I know it's hard when your brain and social skills are 1,000 miles further than your ability to express it. But I think it boils down to the fact that we think more to say it the exact way that we mean it. And then if we don't successfully manage to do so, we beat ourselves up for it. Which again, is so wrong because first, there's 1,000 ways to say everything. But second, that is stopping you from showing up at all. You inserting yourself in conversation and showing up anyways, even at the cost of being less articulate, is far more important than proving to anyone that you're perfect. Chances are that the people listening to you or participating are either foreigners that are going through your same struggle because they're also speaking in their second language, or is a native English speaker that never had to learn another language because they could solely rely on English their whole life. So honestly, they should get a page out your book that you're doing fine. Second is dating and expressing emotions. So I think one of the best things of living in a multicultural big city like Sydney is there's such a variety and diversity of cultures, backgrounds, mixes, and nationalities that make the city so lively and vibrant. And I'm generally a very socially curious person, so I think dating has been a very interesting way for me to explore such diversity, especially because by choice I decided to never date Italians. I dated Australians, English, Hispanics, my ex was Brazilian, for example. And before I keep going, I want to acknowledge the existence and success of intercultural relationships. I think they're beautiful, but I think they work when both people come with the enthusiasm, curiosity, and patience to understand the cultural nuances that make the other person who they are. Because for me, what I struggled with the most, it was fully expressing myself and my emotion and being perceived for the entirety of who I am. Not because I didn't have the words to do so, but because I was always under the impression that there was a subtle, clear distance between us. I was never fully perceived for the entirety of my personality. And maybe that's a thousand reasons as to why that is happening. And maybe that's because I was never met with the curiosity I was talking about. But I partially blame it on the language. Not the language, the communication barrier, because it's not so much the language, but I think it's a matter of depth of meaning. This is something that I realized only when I happened to date an Italian, and the realization hit me like a truck. When you're speaking English, you don't get access to the full emotional nuances that you would have in your own language. I was actually reading a very interesting research in psycholinguistics that points how our native language is developed in high emotional contexts, such as our home country, elementary school, with our childhood friends, in our household with our parents, whilst our second language is developed in emotionally neutral spaces. So we might be learning it abroad, at a language school, or at university. So the emotional involvement is lower, if not muted, because we are translating our thoughts into a prepackaged process filtered version. And also on top of that, but this is just my personal take, I think English falls short on passion and emotion and lacks a lot of the vocabulary that we have, for example, in Italian and Spanish, to speak on the mental and emotional world. So I believe that in most cases it's extremely unrealistic or very hard for two people from different backgrounds and languages to be together and fully access entirely the other person without one learning the other person's language. I know, I know. But to me, it's like missing out on a big part of their personality and their identity, their sense of humor, their jokes, their vulnerability. You don't get access to that. I'm sorry, but it's in friendship, like you can work around it. But in dating, I think it's a big deal. The way that I feel perceived and seen when I don't have to serve a processed version of my thoughts that avoid complex ideals and makes thoughts more digestible for the other person is just unmatched. And that is not to say that they're gonna like me more in my first language. No, they might still dislike me after. That's not my point. But at the very least, I know that they experience the real, raw me that doesn't have to consume brain battery to think about how to say that specific thing, how to word that specific emotion. And on top of that, I also feel like my memory is so much better because when I allow my brain to solely engage in the conversation without translating my thoughts in real time, I can also remember better details about the other person and be completely there and present. I don't know, this might be a hot take, but I feel like not getting access to the full meaning system as the other person always creates some sort of disconnection, distance, and misalignment. At least on my side, and that was always a deal breaker for me. So Third, we have language fatigue and bilingual burnout. So I am constantly exhausted. There's surely a trade off between the brain fatigue that you experience living your life in English and the energy gained by those social interactions. And this is also a thing that does get better with time. I promise you, first 1 to 2 years, I would have a full day of work, go to university, have happy hour with friends, and then dinner with my boyfriends. And by the end of the night, I get in bed and my brain it is scrambled. The best way I can describe it is like having multiple tabs open in your brain at the same time, all running at full speed, while you try to stay present and engage in every single setting. So imagine for someone who's already an introvert and he's trying to be out and socialize and making friends, while you fully have to switch and translate versions of yourself and how much mental battery it consumes to do so. I remember I used to feel like I needed 2 portable chargers on me at all times. And sometimes I still do feel like that in very stressful moments of my life. And again, I want to stress how important it is to go easy on yourself. Give your brain a break and allow yourself to be less articulate or more spontaneous at times. Enjoying the moments that living abroad gives you and the friendships that you are building is far more valuable than you proving that you are the most performative, perfect, eloquent, well spoken person in the room. No one cares. And this is something that I wish I had told myself in the past. You showing up 10 times out of 10, even if it's not perfect, even if you're not completely recharged, even if you don't feel like you have something to add, is far more important than showing up perfect 1 time out of 10. Enjoy it with no pressure. This is not a competition. This is not a stage. You don't have to perform. No one's giving you a mic. You're so fine. And the fourth and last one is losing your first language while trying to be well spoken in English. So this is a frustrating one. And I haven't quite figured out how to deal with this. So if anyone has any advices or suggestions, please let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. But before moving here, one of the things that I was proud of the most was how eloquent and well spoken I was in Italian. I have a different personal interests such as psychology, sociology, philosophy, politics, and economics. And for me, alongside my education, nurturing, strengthening, and deepening my vocabulary to express my opinions and concepts on these topics has always been very important. I think our communication affects our reality and our internal and external words. So for me, having the right words to say what I meant to say was always deeply important. Now that I became bilingual, I realized that while I'm trying to be more articulate and structured and confident in my second language, I'm also losing that same ability in my native language. Like you might find me here speaking on my emotional world and personal growth and mindset with clarity and ease. But then when I try to do the same thing in Italian now, which once was so easy and natural, now I hesitate and I simplify and I have to think longer for those same words. I always feel like something, some level of depth is missing. It's not that I've become less intelligent or less articulate, it's that my thinking has started to grow in a different language than the one I was raised in. It's not like I'm losing Italian, I'm just not feeling it the same way. Because language is not just something you know, it's something you live in, you think in, you grow in. And now I'm living and I have lived and grown somewhere else. So you end up in this between space when part of you is articulate but slightly disconnected, and the other one is deeply rooted but harder to express. Like parts of your identity now exist in different languages, and bringing them back together takes far more intention than you'd ever believe. So now the question might be clear, Alessia, if English is such a big deal for you, why would you ever decide to make videos in English? No one is forcing you to. Well, first off, it forces me to dig into the deepest side of my emotions and psyche to bring out these insights and feelings, which helps me grow this side that I struggle with, but also because I want to create something that holds both sides of me. I don't want to pick one over the other. As I approach going back to Europe, I realize how important it is for me to reconnect with that side of myself, the one that holds all of my feelings and deepest thoughts. But at the same time, English has become the language that I've grown in, how I articulate my experiences. And I want to be able to make it accessible and reach people from different backgrounds all over the world that might be going through the same thing as I'm going through. So it's about using English as a bridge, a way to share my story in a space that feels accessible and also in a space that holds both sides of me. Because at the end of the day, I do not belong to just one world. I fully exist in both. And although I might still be trying to fully understand and navigate how to be fulfilled in both, I definitely want to be able to resonate with you all. So yeah, this is just my experience navigating life in English and how I felt my identity and personality be affected as a result. I deeply think this is a learning curve, and I am putting all of my current effort in advancing my education and my vocabulary in both languages and be able to strengthen my brain to practice both. But these are all my thoughts. Remember, if you're going through the same thing, let's go easy on ourselves. It's very tiring and draining for the brain to be doing both, and the fact itself of being bilingual is a big achievement that we should all be proud of, rather than focus on the fact that we are not being perfect at it yet. So yeah,